Which 11 foods are quietly disappearing from store shelves? And what should people watch before the best options are gone? What is concerning is that the first items to change may not be rice, beans, or the foods people usually think of when they hear about shortages. They are still in supermarkets. The shelves are not empty, but larger packages are becoming less common. Low-cost brands appear inconsistently, and some pure products are getting harder to choose among smaller or more expensive versions. Behind this are shrinking planted acreage, fluctuating production, and raw material supplies that no longer have as much buffer as before. This is not the time to clear the shelves. This is the time to look more closely. Here are 11 foods worth checking now. While shoppers still have enough choices to compare prices, ingredients, and sources. 11. Frozen orange juice concentrate. The small can is slowly disappearing from the freezer. The freezer door opens, and cold air spills down under the white lights. There is still plenty of bottled orange juice in the section nearby. But shoppers may begin to notice small gaps where low-cost cans of orange juice concentrate once sat. Orange juice is not disappearing from America. What is shrinking is a specific format. Small, economical cans of frozen concentrate that can be kept in the freezer for the period stated on the label and mixed at home. What stands out is that this change is happening while the raw material supply is under pressure. Forecasts for the 2026 to 2027 season show that the global orange juice supply could fall from about 1.34 million tons to nearly 1.16 million tons, or about 13%. Brazil remains a major part of the global supply, while Florida's citrus industry continues to face the lasting effects of citrus greening. But supply is only part of the story. For years, consumers have shifted heavily toward ready-to-drink bottled orange juice, making frozen orange juice concentrate a smaller segment. When a slow-selling format takes up freezer space, retailers have more reason to reduce the number of SKUs, particularly when both ingredient and operating costs are under pressure. So the decline can happen very quietly. Private labels may disappear first, then basic cans, less popular sizes, or familiar flavors. That space may be replaced by ready-to-drink products or higher-selling items. The orange juice section may remain full, but the most economical orange juice is no longer there. And when the selection changes, do not look only at the picture of the orange on the package. Look for the words 100% orange juice and read the ingredient list. Orange drink, orange beverage, or juice cocktail may contain less juice or added sugar, even if the packaging looks much like regular orange juice. One major advantage of concentrate remains the ability to mix it yourself. One can is usually mixed with about 3 cans of cold water, producing a total amount of orange juice about 4 times the original volume. The ratio may vary by brand, so follow the directions on the package. When comparing prices, do not look only at the price of the can. Calculate the amount of finished orange juice. In some cases, concentrate may remain cheaper per ounce than ready-to-drink juice. If buying it for storage, only take an amount that fits the freezer's capacity and rotate older cans first. Avoid packages that are torn, leaking, split at the seams, or show signs of having thawed and refrozen. After mixing, the orange juice must be kept refrigerated and used according to the label directions. And if the household is preparing for a prolonged power outage, this should not be the only backup source of vitamin C. What stands out at number 11 is not that orange juice is about to disappear. It is that the small can that once helped shoppers save money, save space, and mix only what they needed is gradually losing its place in supermarket freezers. 10. Canned or dried Tart cherries. A weak harvest reaches the baking aisle. A shopper stands in the baking aisle, looking for the familiar can of Tart cherries to make a cherry pie. Pie filling is still on the shelf, but whole Tart cherries, lower sugar options, or private labels may begin offering fewer choices. This is the kind of change that is very easy to miss. Tart cherries are not disappearing completely, but a weak harvest can reduce the amount of fruit available for canning, drying, juice, and pie filling at the same time. Michigan is the most important center of the U.S. tart cherry industry. According to the forecast for 2026, U.S. tart cherry production is only about 91 million pounds, down about 36% from the previous year. Michigan alone is forecast to produce about 83.1 million pounds, down about 24%. Those numbers do not mean every cherry product will disappear at once. Processors must divide the available fruit among different product lines. Canned cherries, dried cherries, juice, pie filling, and other processed products. When there is less fruit, slower selling lines, private labels, or low-margin products may be more likely to shrink. So shoppers may still see pie filling on the shelf, while whole tart cherries or simpler options become harder to find. And this is when the can needs a closer look. Two cans may be the same size but not necessarily contain the same amount of fruit. As cherries become more expensive, checking the ratio of fruit, syrup, and sugar becomes more important. Do not look only at the picture of cherries on the front of the package. Check whether the product is tart cherries or cherry pie filling, where cherries appear on the ingredient list, the net weight, the drained weight if listed, the amount of added sugar, and the serving size. The image on the package does not tell you exactly how much fruit you are getting. For practical use, dried cherries are particularly well suited to stored foods that can be fairly monotonous. Mix 2 parts rolled oats, 1 part dried cherries, and 1 part nuts into a dry mixture. When ready to use, add hot water or milk and let the oats soften according to the package directions. Canned cherries are versatile in a different way. Put the cherries and the liquid from the can into a pot. Add cornstarch mixed beforehand with a little cold water and cook until the mixture thickens. Cinnamon can be added to taste. The result can be used as pie filling, fruit sauce, or a dessert topping. This is not the most essential food in the pantry, but it adds sweet tart flavor, color, and variety to oatmeal, baked goods, and repeated meals. Dried cherries need to be kept sealed and protected from moisture. For canned products, discard cans that are swollen, leaking, or deeply dented along the seams. After opening, transfer the remainder to a clean, covered container and refrigerate it. It is that a weak harvest in Michigan can quietly appear in the kitchen as fewer whole fruit options, fewer brands, and more reasons for shoppers to read the can carefully before putting it in the cart. 9. Dark chocolate and pure cocoa powder. Chocolate is still there, but there is less cocoa. A familiar chocolate bar still has the same name and nearly unchanged packaging, but the weight printed in the corner of the new package shows how large the chocolate bar inside remains. With chocolate chips and cocoa powder, shoppers must pay closer attention to package size, price, and the ingredients they are getting. The world's cocoa supply is heavily concentrated in Ivory Coast and Ghana. When unfavorable weather, plant disease, and aging cocoa trees make production unstable, the market can face severe shortages. During the 2023 to 2024 season, the global cocoa market had a deficit of about 439,000 tons, equal to nearly 10% of the world's supply. Ending stocks in Ghana for the 2025 to 2026 season are forecast to fall by more than 52%. That does not mean chocolate will disappear from stores. The pressure usually appears in products in 3 ways: higher prices, lower weights, or new lines that use less cocoa. Dark chocolate is affected more clearly because the cocoa percentage is the core of the product. In a bar labeled 70% cocoa, most of the weight comes from cocoa ingredients rather than sugar and milk. So do not compare two bars by price alone. Look at this weight, cocoa percentage, and ingredient list. Chocolate flavored only means the product has a chocolate flavor. It does not guarantee a high cocoa content. Cocoa butter is the fat from cocoa beans. Chocolate liquor is ground cocoa mass and has nothing to do with alcoholic drinks. If vegetable oil appears on the ingredient list, the formula may differ significantly from chocolate that uses cocoa butter as its characteristic fat. Cocoa powder must also be chosen for the right purpose. Natural cocoa is naturally acidic and has a sharper flavor. Dutch processed cocoa is treated with alkali, so it is usually darker and milder. The two do not always produce the same results in baking recipes. To make hot chocolate, mix 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder with 1 to 2 tablespoons of sugar. Add a little hot milk, stir it into a paste, then slowly add the rest of 1 cup of milk. This helps the cocoa mix evenly and reduces clumping. Chocolate and cocoa powder need to be kept sealed in a cool, dry place, away from light, heat, and strong-smelling foods. The white coating on chocolate may be fat bloom or sugar bloom. It changes the appearance and texture, but does not automatically mean the product has spoiled. With chocolate, the shelf price tells only half the story. The weight, cocoa percentage, and type of fat show how much real chocolate shoppers are taking home. 8. Extra virgin olive oil. The bottle is still there, but quality is shrinking. A shopper stands in front of the olive oil shelf and chooses the largest bottle because the price per ounce is lower. It sounds economical, but if that bottle is opened, kept next to the stove, and takes months to finish, the initial savings may disappear along with the oil's aroma and quality. That is what makes olive oil different from many items on this list. A larger bottle is not always a better buy. Olive oil supplies in the Mediterranean continue to vary sharply between regions. In the 2025 to 2026 season, production in Greece is forecast to fall by about 15%. In Spain's Castile-La Mancha region, the forecast decline is about 17%. Europe as a whole has recovered from the previous severe drought seasons, so it would be inaccurate to say there is a global olive oil shortage. But high-quality extra virgin olive oil remains heavily dependent on weather, temperature, pests, and the fruiting cycle in each region. As prices rise, shoppers need to know what kind of oil they are paying for. Extra virgin olive oil is produced through mechanical methods and must meet specific quality standards. Pure olive oil usually contains refined olive oil blended with virgin oil. With an olive oil blend, check the ingredient list to see whether the product blends only different olive oils or includes other oils. A clear origin, product classification, and harvest or bottling date, if listed, are more useful than Mediterranean imagery on the label. Then comes the size. A large bottle may be cheaper per ounce, but olive oil loses quality when exposed to heat, light, and air. Households that use oil slowly are usually better suited to a moderately sized bottle. Buying 2 liters only because the price is good is no longer economical if the second half of the bottle has lost most of its aroma before it is used. Dark glass bottles or metal cans protect the oil from light better than clear bottles. Keep the cap tightly closed, store it in a cool place, and do not place the bottle next to the stove or oven. Olive oil is particularly useful with stored foods because just a small amount can add energy and flavor to rice, beans, pasta, or vegetables. A basic dressing needs only 3 parts olive oil, 1 part vinegar or lemon juice, and a little salt. Shake well, then adjust the acidity to taste. Olive oil does not need refrigeration, but it does not maintain its quality indefinitely. Buy according to the household's actual rate of use and use the older bottle first. With olive oil, the bottle worth buying is not the largest one. It is the bottle with a clear origin that is small enough for the household to finish, while the oil still retains its quality. 7. Dried peas. The low-cost ingredient that is not being prioritized. In the dried bean section, shoppers can still easily find black beans, pinto beans, or kidney beans. Split peas are more modest. A few small bags, sometimes from only 1 or 2 brands, sitting among more familiar beans. But the important story does not begin on the lower shelf. It begins out in the fields. In 2026, the area planted with dry edible peas in the United States is forecast to fall by about 11% from the previous year, while the area expected to be harvested is down about 6%. That does not mean split peas will be in short supply nationwide, but it does mean the domestic supply is relying on less acreage. If bad weather hits or demand suddenly rises, the system will have less room to compensate. And this remains one of the simplest foods for stretching a meal. Split peas are not the same as frozen green peas. They are mature peas that have been dried, hulled, and usually split in half. As they cook, they gradually soften and blend into the liquid, creating a thick soup without meat or cream. They also usually do not need to be soaked overnight. Add 1 cup of split peas to about 4 cups of water or broth, then simmer for about 45 to 60 minutes. The cooking time may be longer if the peas have been stored for a long time, so check the directions on the package. From that simple base, the cook can add carrots, onions, potatoes, or a little canned meat. 1 compact cup of dried peas can become the base for a whole pot of hot soup. That is why split peas appear in many soup mixes and plant protein products. But with pre-made packaged mixes, the amount of water and sodium can vary significantly, so the same recipe should not be used for every product. The storage value of split peas lies in 3 very basic things: plant protein, fiber, and the ability to last a long time when kept dry. The peas should be transferred to an airtight container and stored in a cool place away from moisture and insects. Older peas do not necessarily need to be discarded if stored properly, but they usually take longer to soften when cooked. There is no need to buy dozens of bags. The point to remember is much simpler. The acreage devoted to dry peas is shrinking, while the amount of food 1 small bag can produce remains very large. Just 1 cup of split peas can become the base for a whole pot of soup. That is why this low-cost food deserves attention before the choices on the shelf decline. 6. Potato flakes. As acreage shrinks, their storage value becomes clearer. In the produce section, fresh potatoes are still piled high. But every bag of potatoes carries a countdown clock. Over time, they can soften, sprout, or lose quality. Potato flakes solve that weakness. They are light, compact, and more stable when kept dry. In 2026, U.S. potato acreage is forecast at about 873,000 acres, down about 3% from the previous year. Before that, planted and harvested acreage in 2025 had fallen to a record low. Lower acreage does not mean production will necessarily fall by the same percentage because yield per acre can offset part of the decline. But a weak harvest would leave less buffer for many markets, from frozen French fries and potato chips to restaurants and dried foods. Plain potato flakes are different from seasoned instant mashed potatoes. The simple kind is mainly made from cooked and dried potatoes, while flavored packages may contain added milk, fat, salt, or seasonings. When comparing prices, do not compare 1 pound of flakes with 1 pound of fresh potatoes. Most of the weight in fresh potatoes is water, while flakes have been dried. The number of servings after rehydration is a more useful comparison. When preparing them, follow the ratio on the package. Many products start at about 1 part potato flakes to 2 parts hot liquid. Prepared powdered milk or a little oil can be added for richness. Just a few tablespoons can thicken soup or stew. A larger serving becomes a quick side dish without peeling, cutting, or boiling fresh potatoes. Moisture can cause the flakes to clump and lose quality. After opening, transfer the product to an airtight container and keep it in a cool, dry place. Varieties with added milk, fat, or seasonings need to be used within the period stated on the package. Fresh potatoes may still fill the produce section. But as planted acreage declines, the light, quick form that does not race against sprouting is the version worth watching. 5. Canned beef. When a smaller cattle herd reaches the can, a shopper holds 2 cans of nearly the same size, 1 can of corned beef and 1 can of beef stew. The prices are not very different, but the amount of protein and number of servings on the labels clearly are. With canned beef, the size of the can does not necessarily show the true value inside. At the beginning of 2025, the U.S. cattle herd stood at about 86.7 million head, among the lowest levels since the early 1950s. The USDA has also lowered its forecast for U.S. beef production in 2026 to about 25.288 billion pounds. Tighter supplies do not mean canned beef will disappear, but they make each can worth calculating more carefully. Corned beef, canned beef, and beef stew are not the same. A can of stew may contain meat, potatoes, vegetables, and a lot of gravy, while another product focuses more on meat. So check the protein per serving, multiply it by the total number of servings in the can, and then compare it with the price. The ingredient list is useful too. If beef is listed first, that is a good sign of the main ingredient, but the label does not show exactly what percentage of the can is meat. The sodium content should be checked as well, particularly with corned beef and stew. A major advantage of canned beef is that it does not need a freezer before opening. Some products are fully cooked and can be eaten directly if the label confirms it. One can combine with about 2 cups of rice or potatoes, and canned vegetables can make more servings. The beef then provides flavor and protein, while cheaper ingredients help stretch the meal. During a power outage, a can just large enough for one meal is sometimes more practical than a large can because leftovers must be refrigerated after opening. Discard cans that are swollen, leaking, or deeply dented along the seams. A smaller cattle herd will not make every can of meat disappear. It makes every gram of protein inside the can more worth calculating. 4. Pure honey. Production is down, making the source more important. To check the honey shelf is always eye-catching. Pale gold bottles, amber bottles, small bottles, large bottles. The selection still looks very broad at first glance. But with honey, a beautiful color does not tell shoppers much about the product's origin or reliability. In 2024, U.S. honey production reached about 134 million pounds, down about 4% from the previous year. The average price rose about 5% during the same period. By 2025, the numbers of honey-producing colonies was reported to be about 7% lower than the previous year. These numbers do not mean real honey is disappearing, but they show that domestic supply is under pressure, while shoppers must distinguish between honey with a clear origin and blended products. If corn syrup, glucose syrup, or another sweetener is listed in the ingredients, it is a disclosed blend. But if blending is not disclosed, shoppers cannot know for certain from the color, thickness, or the word pure on the label alone. The FDA once tested more than 100 honey samples, and found that a small percentage showed signs of undeclared sweeteners. Most samples met requirements, so the most accurate response is not to distrust every bottle of honey. Do not just buy a bottle of honey. Buy honey from a source you can trust. Prioritize products with a traceable origin, clear information about the packer, and a simple ingredient list. If you can buy from a beekeeper or a trusted local source, that is a useful option too. Pure honey does not need refrigeration when kept sealed and protected from moisture. Crystallization is natural. The honey can be gently warmed in warm water to return it to liquid form. A simple syrup can be made with 1 part honey and 1 part warm water. But once diluted, the mixture is no longer as stable as pure honey. Mix only enough to use, keep the rest refrigerated, and do not leave it at room temperature for long. Do not give honey to children under 12 months old. With honey, color does not prove purity. A clear origin and a single ingredient are where shoppers should begin checking. 3. Canned sardines. When a fishery has been closed for more than a decade, the row of tuna still stretches across the shelf, but the sardine section is usually much smaller. Only a few cans packed in oil, water, or tomato sauce sit among more familiar canned seafood products. The main commercial fishery for Pacific sardines on the U.S. West Coast has been closed since 2015 and has not reopened. During the 2025 to 2026 season, the commercial catch limit remained at 0 tons, while the annual catch limit was only about 2,200 tons. This is strong evidence of how far an important sardine population once declined. But the limits of that data need to be understood correctly. Many cans of sardines sold in the United States use imported fish or other species. So the closure of the Pacific sardine fishery does not directly mean sardine shelves across America will be empty. It only reminds shoppers that wild fish supplies are not always stable. When choosing a can of sardines, look at the species name and origin if the producer lists them. Then compare whether they are packed in oil, water, or tomato sauce. Sardines packed in oil usually provide more energy, while those packed in water may be more suitable if shoppers want to control added fat. If the label lists a drained weight, that number is more useful than the total weight when determining how much fish you are getting. Sardines are a convenient source of protein and omega-3. Many types of sardines fall into the FDA's lower mercury fish categories, so they can be a reasonable part of a varied diet. A very simple meal can use 1 can of sardines with pasta, plus a little olive oil or tomato sauce. It does not require complicated preparation, but still provides protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Keep cans in a cool, dry place. Discard cans that are swollen or leaking. After opening, transfer the remainder to a clean, covered container and refrigerate it. The main Pacific sardine fishery has been closed since 2015. That is why the species name, origin, and actual amount of fish in the can are worth checking before looking only at the price. 2. Vacuum-packed baking yeast. The smallest thing determines the whole loaf. Flour is still in the pantry. Salt is still there. There is no shortage of water either. But without active yeast, dozens of pounds of flour still cannot become familiar loaves of bread. That is what makes yeast completely different from ordinary dry ingredients. Yeast is a living organism. It must be produced, dried, and packaged under tightly controlled conditions to remain active. So supply capacity cannot increase as simply as putting more flour or salt into bags. Small packets of yeast may still appear fairly consistently on shelves, keeping shoppers from noticing an important difference. Larger vacuum-packed packages usually cost less per loaf, but are not as common as small retail packets. For frequent bakers, that difference adds up very quickly. Active dry yeast and instant yeast are not exactly the same. Instant yeast can often be mixed directly with dry ingredients in many recipes, while active dry yeast is usually handled according to the recipe or manufacturer's directions. So one fixed amount should not be used for every type of yeast. A basic loaf can start with about 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of warm water, yeast, and salt. But the amount of yeast must be based on the specific recipe. If you are unsure whether the yeast is still active, test a small amount with warm water, a little sugar, and yeast. Wait about 5 to 10 minutes. If a clear layer of foam and the characteristic yeast smell appear, that is a sign the yeast is still active. Water that is too hot can deactivate the yeast. Vacuum-packed yeast is particularly useful when handled properly. After opening, divide the yeast into small portions in airtight containers to limit exposure to air, then refrigerate or freeze it according to the manufacturer's directions. Write the opening date on the container to make rotation easier. Inactive yeast does not necessarily become dangerous. The practical problem is that the dough will not rise as expected. A kitchen can hold a great deal of flour, but sometimes just a few grams of living yeast determine whether that flour becomes bread or simply remains in the pantry. 1. Canned tomato paste. The small can carries a whole meal on a shelf filled with ketchup, pasta sauce, and crushed tomatoes. Tomato paste is easy to overlook. The small can does not look like an important pantry item, but when it disappears, many basic ingredients in the pantry immediately become harder to connect into a complete meal. Most tomatoes used for processing in the United States come from California. That makes the supply heavily dependent on irrigation water, temperature, energy, labor, and transportation in one major production region. A weak harvest does not necessarily make every tomato product disappear, but it can put low-cost cans or private labels under pressure first. Tomato paste is not the same as tomato sauce or crushed tomatoes. Most of the water has been removed, making the tomato flavor much more concentrated. Just 1 or 2 tablespoons can deepen the color, add umami, and create a base for soup, chili, stew, rice, or pasta. So products should not be compared only by package size. A large can of tomato sauce contains more water, while tomato paste provides concentrated flavor in a small volume. Tubes are convenient when using a little at a time, but they usually cost more per ounce than cans. To make a sauce base, mix 1 part tomato paste with about 2 to 3 parts water. Add oil, salt, garlic, or dried onion, then adjust the thickness. The mixture can be combined with beans, pasta, rice, or canned beef to make a hot meal without opening a large jar of sauce. When buying, check the ingredient list and sodium content. A simple product usually contains only tomatoes, sometimes with added salt or an acidity regulator. Avoid cans that are swollen, leaking, heavily rusted, or deeply dented along the seams. After opening, transfer the remainder to a clean, covered container and refrigerate it according to the label directions. If you use only 1 tablespoon at a time, divide it into small portions and freeze them to reduce waste. Tomato paste does not take up much space and is not the most expensive item in the cart. But its concentrated form is what helps separate ingredients become a flavorful meal. These foods have not disappeared completely. Most remain on the shelves, so the change is easy to miss. One format becomes less common. A weak harvest makes the raw material supply thinner. Large packages are replaced by smaller ones, while pure products become harder to choose among more expensive versions. Preparing does not mean clearing the shelves or filling the house with things you do not use. It is more reasonable to check what the household needs, read labels carefully, buy a suitable amount, and use older items first. While choices remain, shoppers still have the power to compare. By the time gaps appear, that choice may have already narrowed. Which item on this list is becoming hardest to find at stores where everyone lives?